Welcome to the Only Male Cruise Show, the podcast. I am the only Male Cruise. Be sure to hit the like button, share, subscribe, replay gang, leave a comment. You know I want to hear from you. Copyright disclaimer regarding fair use is in full effect. The views and opinions expressed in this show, you guessed it, they're all mine. Let's go to work. Welcome to the Only Male Cruise Show, the podcast. I am the Only Male Cruise, and just to let you know, we got a special guest in the studio. This is an emergency meeting, and so the guest today is Shanati Said. You can follow her on YouTube, Instagram, IG, Twitter. She's on every social media platform, but the reason why we're here today is to discuss CRT and the Comfort Bill. So we don't have a lot of time. Shanati was able to do an emergency meeting with me real quick, and so I'm glad you were able to pull up. Hello, Shanati. How are you?
Hey, Mel, thanks for having me. No, of course, I'm happy to be here, and this is something that we need to talk about.
Awesome.
But
Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad you're here. Let me just say this. Thanks everyone for pulling up. I appreciate y'all pulling up. Be sure to hit the like button, share, subscribe. If you haven't already, replay gang, leave a comment. You know, I want to hear from you. So here's the thing. Okay, so we talked about it before on other panels. And, you know, this thing is getting worse, y'all. This is what I'm trying to tell you. It's getting worse. We have this comfort bill, okay? I think the last time we had a panel, I think Island Browning was in the house and a couple other people. I think I'm just Antoinette. So we were talking about the fact that Governor DeSantis in Florida was a major engine behind a bill being passed. And the components of that bill basically are that you cannot speak about discrimination. You can't teach Black history. And this is even in the workplace and in school. So what you can't do is make people feel uncomfortable about race. You can't essentially the bill says, you can't make people feel guilty or uncomfortable about something that their ancestors may have done in the past. It's not their fault. So they've got this bill out so that if you do it, teachers can lose their jobs, employers can, run into issues, things of that nature. So I have a problem with that, period. But based on the nature of this bill, which now in Florida, it only needs to be signed by Governor DeSantis at this point. And then it will be a law in Florida. So, okay, so that's a problem anyway, because why are you limiting factual information about Black history? So we got that working. But then I just read over the weekend that we got some students who actually decided that they were going to hold a slave auction in the school. Okay? So we can't teach about race. We can't talk about race. We can't talk about discrimination. We can't make anyone feel uncomfortable, but yet you can do this? So let me just kind of give you guys a quick recap. Mom claims son was sold in slave auction by classmates. The North Carolina school district has apologized. These apologies are getting real old, y'all. Has apologized after a parent complained her son was sold at a slave auction at a school. And in a March 4th Facebook post, the parent said that her son had experienced a slave auction, said that the son went for $350. I mean, there's nothing else to say about it. Shanati, what do you think about this?
honestly, I don't want to get off the mute because I didn't want to say it. But if you want to play devil's advocate, if you don't teach critical race theory, then little white kids won't know to have a slave auction.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. That would be okay.
You see what I'm saying?
I do. I see what you're saying. But here's the thing. The issue is that if we don't teach Black history,
No, 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 no,
critical,
no, no. I don't want to
okay,
interrupt you. But here's the thing,
yeah,
right?
mm,
The schools are not teaching it. So what Black people are really saying is that if the white people in school don't teach my kids about their history, they're never gonna learn it because I'm never gonna do it.
you're saying
So
that
I
that's
don't care if the schools don't teach my kids something because I'm gonna do it as long as I'm breathing too.
right. And I think that, that's the general consensus. But the point is that we're not in a position to make the playing field level, because
Whose
some
fault is
parents,
that?
well, it varies. It's going to vary.
You don't think there's enough wealth in a Black community to sustain our own?
Absolutely,
Why if you Black you have to pay to go to a HBCU?
you don't. But here's my point. In a
I'm
perfect,
talking about like what they got going on with with the when them kids was protesting outside of these HBCUs because of they
yeah,
need
that's a
money
building.
now because the
Mhm,
campus is falling apart and all of
right.
this stuff. Why do
Mm.
you have why would we have to pay to fix that? Like we shouldn't have to do that.
Well,
That's where reparations will come in handy to make our own private Black institutions continue to stand.
mhm.
So that way we all like you as a Black person you shouldn't have to apply to a HBCU. Whichever one you want to go to should be the one that you get to.
Absolutely. But here's the thing. So now I see you're coming from this devil's advocate uh, perspective, and I got you on that. But here's my point. Every parent, their perfect dream would be, oh, I'll be home before the kids get home. I have milk and cookies on the table, and everything's lovely, and the laundry's done. Everything's downy fresh, and life is good. Ain't no disconnect notices in the bill. Cars always running. Da 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 da. Perfect world scenario. And unfortunately, people don't live in that. There are some adults out here who have children who really don't care. Okay. It's just like that. And my point, this is my biggest point. You don't want these kids have to be in a controlled environment for at least 8 hours or however long the schoolhouse is open. Okay. Just to I'm not even talking about the extracurricular activities. They have to be in school. So they're all in a common place. And so we know that out of these different households, some kids are coming out of racist households, some kids are coming out of abusive households. You have all these different perspectives converging or convening on one specific physical location. And in that, they're bringing something from home. They're bringing something from the crib into that schoolhouse. And so when you say, hey, we're going to on purpose intentionally prevent you from at least teaching the correctness of history, Black history, or history, period. We're going to prevent you. We're going to put some blocks in there because we don't want you to make anybody feel uncomfortable. So now we don't get to, enlighten the other students, but they get to come in with their ignorance and um, put their ignorance on display like this.
But
And
everyone is influenced by their parents, right? But normally, once you get to a certain age, when you're young, it is what it is. You can literally cannot help how you are because you are how you are based on your environment. But everyone is influenced by their parents. But at certain points in times, different for everyone. Usually in preteen, teenage years, we all start thinking for ourselves because all of our parents wanted us to live a certain type of lifestyle and don't do this until you do this and go to school to be this when you grow up and do this and do this and don't stay out past this and that and don't hang with that person. And we've all disregarded what our parents said and come up with our own conclusions. So if people aren't going to school and learning that at one point in time white people were superior and Black people were not even considered human beings or fully fledged adults, then maybe that's a good thing. Maybe there's Black parents who don't want their kids learning that they were considered inferior, and there's hundreds of years to prove that they were in fact treated and inferior until they had to fight for their independence. Maybe some of us just want them to know that you come from a history of perseverance through anything, not just slavery, because Black history is not just slavery. And that's not, I don't understand why it's glorified like that's something we should be proud of. It's a fact, yeah, but it's not a fun fact. Like that shit is trash. And my sons are not slaves, and I don't want them to remember their ancestors as slaves.
Mhm.
They have a lot of different ancestors, and all of them were not slaves. Some of them were kings and queens and different things. So this black Hitler, and again, I'm not going to listen to what what the school wants to teach my kids about Black history. Like, that's just asinine to me. So all I hear is a lot of people complaining that they want other people to do something that they could easily do themselves. The library still exists and the books are still free there. It's not that complicated.
Okay. Okay. So then let me ask you this, Shanati, because this comfort bill, and let me state this as well. So a bill like this is already in 37 states. Okay. And there are some additional states, and I'm trying to click down here. Okay. So other states that have banned critical race theory: Arkansas, Idaho, Oklahoma. Other states that are debating whether to ban it or not are Michigan, Tennessee, Texas, Georgia, North Carolina, where the slave story is coming out of, South Carolina, where we've got, what's my man's name? I think he's part of that Black Caucus. What's his name? Clyburn. Um, South Carolina, Ohio, South Dakota, Arizona, Kentucky, Utah, New Hampshire. They're also debating bans on critical race theory. In the state of Arizona, the Senate attempted to pass a bill to ban it, but it failed. But they said that 2 Republicans voted against it, but they're saying that that bill could return for another vote. So, from your perspective, the way you just kind of shared your perspective, it's logical. It makes sense. I can see where you're
I
going
see
with.
both sides of it. You know
Yeah,
what I
but
mean?
but
Like,
but
I
my
see
issue,
both
well,
sides
my
of it.
issue is, so what do you do um, when you have students come in and unfortunately I couldn't find the best pictures, but it is on IG where um, these students in Maryland, I believe it is, had actually posted pictures on social media, and the pictures were captioned with, you know, "Gotta go catch these slaves," and these
So
kids were
here's the
going.
thing. Here's the thing. When you teach about slavery, like you said, there are some kids who are growing up in racist households, right? And
Mhm,
then here's what happens. Those kids who are growing up in racist households go to school. And then in school, the teachers tell them, "Hey, little boy and girls, that feeling that you have, what your dad and mom are teaching you, your grandparents are teaching you, they were right. If this was the old times, you would be in charge. You wouldn't have to work. You wouldn't have to do anything. Your mom and dad wouldn't have to work. Them other little boys and girls in your class, they would be working for you. They would be doing anything and everything you told them to."
mhm.
All the school does is reinforce racism and tells the racists that your ancestors lost. And if you get the courage up to fight back, maybe we could gain it again. Like, that's what the whole take our country back is.
Right,
They want to go back to a specific time,
right,
and they learn about that time where at. Where do they learn about that time? Where is that time glorified that a certain group of people were in charge of literally everything and did not have to do anything, and the only thing that happened to them was they lost a battle?
right. So I get, and I see that. So you're pretty much okay. So I see that you're saying, if I understand you correctly, basically what you're saying is, since they're haphazardly and half-heartedly teaching the subject of Black history, because I'm not saying that, Black history should focus solely on the race, the slavery
Mm-hmm.
aspect. So they're half-heartedly teaching it, which, and if I understood you correctly, you're basically saying just don't teach it at all. Then you don't have that. But my thing is, let's put their feet to the fire, because we can expand on that. And instead of just only teaching about, um, the slavery aspect of it, teach about all of it. Teach about the inventors. Teach about um, Callie House. Teach, make the teaching more well-rounded, as opposed to just limiting it to slavery. Because if the teacher, because I can't, I couldn't find out, and I hope and pray that the teacher that um, put this slave auction together, I hope to and pray that this was not a Black teacher. I hope it wasn't. Because, and if it wasn't a Black teacher.
But isn't but this is my problem, because see,
Mhm.
now you're saying you want history to be taught, but only in a certain type of way. What is the big deal with a little Black kid being portraying a slave auction. Isn't that Black history? Isn't that art imitating life? Isn't that like a actual representation of something that happened that we're sitting here saying we want them to learn about? So when they put on plays, who's going to play the parts of these little Black slaves? This is why it makes no sense that you want your kids to keep learning that what they come from is something like that in the first place. But we just want a reason to be mad, and that's fine. But there's better things that we can be mad about, because
Right.
a little Black kid being auctioned off by white kids is critical race theory in practice.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. Well, me personally, um, and again, solid point, but that doesn't necessarily apply to me, because if it were a play, and it were a play about what's my man's name? That slave that they boiled his bones and made purses out of his skin. Um, Antoinette knows the name. She mentions him quite a few times, but what's his name? Because he was a terror. But my point is that if it were a play, that would be a different thing, because then there would be a beginning, a middle, and an end. But for you to take uh, history during Black History Month or shortly out of Black History Month, and all you're focusing on is a slave, the fact that our history is rich with being enslaved, and then the only thing you can do is imitate a slave auction. Okay, there's there's something wrong with that. There's something wrong with that, especially when you don't want anyone else to talk about how ratchet our history has been. So there's not a balance there. So even if I were to agree with you 100%, Shinati, then they still shouldn't be doing this slave auction thing, because it's only a piece of it. There's more to our history than being a slave. And the point is that so this is a bill that, or this type of law they're trying to get. It's advancing. It's in 37 states. They're trying to get it more. Now, in places of employment, some of these laws actually impact the place of employment. So if you go to work and they call you out your name, call you the N word, call you all this and that, you can't even you can't even go and say, hey, I feel like there's some discrimination going on, because they don't want it. You can't talk about it, because it might make somebody feel uncomfortable. The imbalance is the fact that we can't talk about it now. By law, we are not able to discuss it. We can't even do it in an onboarding session when we say, okay, here's the company policies. We don't tolerate racism. We don't tolerate discrimination. Discrimination looks like this, and this. We can't even have those conversations. So it's just a free for all. A free for all.
Oh, you mean freedom of speech?
No, a free for all,
It's
where
freedom of speech. If somebody wants to, so if a white person wants to go around calling Black people the N word, why are we trying to stop them? You don't want to know who feels like that? I hope every person who feels like a Black person is an N word says it loud and proud on a regular basis until they get all attention from at least me. I want to know where each and every last one of them is. I don't want them to hide and be sneaking and serving my food and cooking and being a chef, or I don't want to be applying to their jobs and working for them, busting my ass, and at the end of the day, they going home saying certain things. So I want them to exercise their freedom of speech, to not make no threats, but describe me however you want to, because I'm gonna call you a cracker ass cracker if I feel like it, and I don't get in trouble for it like you get in trouble for it, and I don't hold myself to a different standard that I'm gonna hold you to.
Mhm.
I'm not my ancestors, so the N word ain't gonna hit on me. It don't hurt me. I probably
Right.
laugh at you like, okay, so that's what everything in the world. That's what you got. That makes you ignorant.
Mhm. Well, I mean, I'm just tell you, Shinati, your point of view, your position is definitely one that all must, we probably all need to adopt if these laws don't stop. And I mean, like I said, I see it from your point of view, but I feel like stop the madness. I need you to respect, not you, but these lawmakers and these people that agree with it. I need you to respect the fact that I do come from more than slavery. Okay, um, we built the White House. We, as Black Americans, we built the White House. We have created so many inventions, um, and we don't get the credit for it. Just like I think I read recently about one of those whiskey, might have been Jim Beam or Jack Daniels, um, where where it was a slave that actually taught, I think it's Jack
Jack
Daniels.
Daniels was a slave who made it. Yes.
Yeah. And the fact that the company years later said, um, some type of way we need to show homage, we need to pay homage, we need to show some level of acknowledgement for the person that was instrumental in, Jack Daniels, the company, having this generational wealth. So at least they tried to, acknowledge, the truth of why they're so
But that's the
successful.
thing though, right? That
Mhm.
was the slave owner who owned the slave who came up with that too, because he put the reason why everybody even knows this story is because he was one of the first slaves that they had in a picture with white people. And
Right,
that's what made people want to look back at it like, yo, why he get the as a slave, why he get the honor to be in this picture
right.
as the only black guy sitting amongst all these creators and owners of
Mhm,
this brand.
mhm.
And it came out that, he was property then. So obviously, as property is, he didn't have the right to own anything. You can't own anything if you are something that is yourself owned.
Right, right,
So they took credit, but it was a known thing. But because of the way things were, he couldn't be a free person if he wanted to.
right.
So it is what it is.
Well, here's okay. Okay. I just feel like this. You're not going to put my kids, my grandkids, nobody's kids that I know, in a slave auction and think I'm going to sit down and be quiet. That's just not going to happen. And I don't care.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're not going to have
Exactly.
that. We're not going to have that. And I don't want to have to keep coming up to the school every 5 minutes because every time I look up, y'all doing some racial stuff. But then my kids can't come to school and be proud of their heritage. And
But
not
when
only
Diddy,
that,
when
well,
Diddy
wait, but not only that,
starting charter schools, everybody wanted to say that he was just trying to rob people and undereducate people.
when who
But
was
you
doing
think
that?
that Diddy was starting a lot of charter schools and he got a lot of flack for it, and
Mhm.
he ended up stopping. And I think he only got one left in like Harlem or something somewhere. But I said that to say that the problem here is not what they're teaching in schools. The problem here is that we're letting them teach our kids in general.
Okay, and I get that, but and you bring up a good point about Diddy, because we know LeBron James is pulling some schools together as well.
Yep.
I don't know how many he has, but whether it's a charter school or not, if this is a state law, they're going to have to comply with that. They're going to have to comply with that law. It's the fact that you're making a law that is pretty much silencing our voice. So yeah, we all going to be huddled around in a hut in the backyard with a candle. Now let me show you how to read, Toby. Is that what it's coming to? Is that where they're trying to get us to?
No, we're gonna be right on YouTube instead of going to the polls and voting for people who wouldn't put these laws into place in the first
Right.
place.
So now I'm glad you went that way, because when I called you up and said, "Girl, come on and do this episode with me," um, you made a one hell of a point about Georgia. And do you remember what you said? And so could you
Absolutely. It's
please repeat it?
disgusting to see that with all the amount of money and black influence that's concentrated in Atlanta, Georgia's a Republican state going through the shit that they're going through.
Hmm.
That goes to show you that we are for self, and you can't blame that on nobody, because there's no way Georgia should be Republican. There's no way Georgia should be going through anything with all that influence down there, all of that money.
So then, and you think that so I'm asking, how do we resolve that? Is it, oh my goodness, Shanati's situation kicked her off. I know she said she didn't have a lot of time. If y'all are in the chat, be sure to hit the like button, share, subscribe if you haven't already. But can y'all sound off in the comments? Tell me what you think. Shanati's back. Tell me what you think, because I'm glad you're back, Shanati. Unmute your mic. Um, what I want to know is so do you think it's just simply all we have to do is vote, or is there more work to do?
I think that we gotta vote and that we gotta stop raising our kids to be in the hood and start raising our kids to literally be required to be doctors, nurses, lawyers, teachers, police officers, fire department. Like every other country, every other culture requires their children to be certain things, whether they like it or not. That's what I think.
Mhm.
I think that we have to start putting ourselves in positions of authority in different places and then serving our community instead of trying to get a seat at the table or somebody else's table because there's more money already there.
Right.
And I think we need to stop selling our shit once our shit get popping
Mm,
because we want to make the headlines to say that we sold something for $1 billion when we could have kept it and been had $1 trillion.
mm. Okay. All right, let me look at some of these comments because the people is throwing up confetti for you, baby. Um, Tristan's mommy says, "Excellent point, Shanati. We know Taniqua McKay got all the hundreds in the bank. Just the tea, please. Agrees with you.
Hey
Um,
y'all.
yeah. So,
Not because like you having a school, you having a slave auction, little kids. First of all, this like, let me tell you something. And I've told this before on Station Head, and I'll say it here real quick.
mhm,
Long story short, my youngest son found out he was black in kindergarten from one of his friends.
mhm,
His friend came to school after listening to his father talk about Barack Obama running for president at the time for the first time. And whatever his racist self was saying, my son's friend came back to school and said, you know, such and such, and said my son's name. He said, you know, you black like Barack Obama. He said, I'm not black, I'm brown. What are you talking about?
mhm.
I said, what
So,
is
and
black?
when how old was he?
4.5, turning 5.
Okay. Just the tea, please said, we need more people like us in the government section. I agree with that.
We do.
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Everybody want to raise their kids to be the next rapper, the best nothing.
Mhm.
Everything but what we need. But steady to even all of these celebrities that's out here, what they putting their kids into. You don't see none of their kids actually going to college, finishing and going to do something. They all end up right on tour or on the shows with them. All of the same ones that's out here in the beginning and at the beginning of the protest. What they doing with their kids?
Right.
They not putting them into public service. Like, come on, it's a joke.
Yeah. Well, I need to say this affirmatively because your argument is solid, Shanati. I don't disagree with you at all. I mean, it's, as I say all the time, it's logical. You know, your perspective is logical. But I just have a problem with the fact that you're going to tell me that my kids can't receive instruction. And I've been a substitute teacher. Okay. And so for those of y'all that know me, I mean, know me at least just half the way, y'all know I don't cut no corners. I'm not playing no games with nobody. You're going to get the whole 100 from me. And so, so for me as a teacher, if I was in there teaching Black history, then of course I'm going to give it, you know, I'm going to give it to you straight with no chaser. Doesn't mean I'm going to be like, yeah, and you know, that everybody's going to be ready to riot. I mean, they might be close to ready to riot after I get done with the lesson plan. But the point is they're going to get the whole round overall view of that time in history. My issue is that they have confined us and limited us and put us in a box as it relates to teaching about our history. But yet and still, the rest of these, you know, these other races get to go out and just be free and come through with the Confederate flags and use the N word and allude to make slavery analogies. Yeah, we like they had on IG. Yeah, I got to go catch these slaves. Got to go round up some N words, putting nooses at places of employment. So they're free to express all of this racial prejudicial thing. Okay. But yet and still, we can't even approach it from an intellectual level and say, hey, let me teach you about history. Let me teach you about this. Because we are part of the reason why America is what America is, because of our contribution. So to simply limit us and say, well, you can't talk about it because you're going to make us feel bad.
America ain't shit. We sit here right now upset with the way America doing our education system. We upset with the gas prices. We upset with the president and the healthcare system. America ain't shit. So yeah, I don't know why we want to claim that we contributed to something that ain't shit, that was built off of something slavery, and slavery comes with the N-word. And right. Who were the people who were saying it? So right. If we're going to keep teaching it, then if we're going to keep on, they have to say it in order for it to be taught.
Okay.
We don't have enough teachers teaching ourselves, and it still has to be said then. And if you was gonna have a play, and you're gonna say that if you want the play to be an actual representation, it wasn't just there was people inventing stuff as well. That person who invented Jack Daniels was a slave when he did it. He still probably got ass whoopings. He still probably had to sell his children. Yeah, the generations that make him prove that they're related to him now, or that have always known, may get a little bit of something. But he was still a slave even when he did that. That's not glamorous.
Well, I don't
There's
mean it.
there's no there's no way to there's no way to sugarcoat that.
Right.
And I wholeheartedly believe in the freedom of speech. I
Mhm.
love to say what the fuck I feel like. And so I'm not gonna take that away from nobody. Just like I could be held accountable, just like other people could get canceled for what they say. If white people want to be racist and say the N-word, then they can be held accountable. They willing to be held accountable for it. And some of them is willing to take them chances. Some of them will come out later once they realize how much support they was getting and apologize. But I don't understand why we want to silence them from expressing themselves when we need to know we need to know if our teachers are saying the N-word. We need to know if that's how our kids' teachers feel. We don't need to be letting them hide. Let them get comfortable. You don't want to, I don't understand. Like, I
Okay.
don't get it. I don't
Okay.
get it. Like, it
Okay.
makes no sense to me
Yeah.
why you would not want to know if the person who's about to go do open heart surgery on your mom is a racist.
Yeah.
I
No.
want to know these things.
Right. And I'm not saying I don't want to know. What I'm saying is I want to even the playing field. So this Florida amendment, some of the nuts and bolts in it, it says that the amendment instructs public school staff to teach topics around race efficiently and faithfully, using materials that meet the highest standards of professionalism and historical accuracy. So that is just a bunch of word salad, in my opinion, because if any part of that efficiently and faithfully, and any part of those highest standards of professionalism and historical accuracy make anyone feel uncomfortable, then you can't teach it. You can't teach it. And it says critical race theory, which legislation describes as the theory that racism is not merely the product of prejudice, but that racism is embedded in American society and its legal systems in order to uphold the supremacy of white persons. So that's essentially the definition of CRT. And like I said, I see your point. I guess I just see your point. But you're right. I do. If my doctor's racist, I want to know, because then I need a new doctor. But I just feel like the ability for them to come in and put some laws in place that limit me.
But you're minimizing how it happened. They got elected. So that means somebody didn't vote.
Right.
So if in your state this is happening, then you need to get out, you need to whip up some votes, and you need to change the representative. If this is not happening in your state, then maybe the states this is happening too. This is what they want.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because these people didn't just come in and just do this. No, they got elected to it. They got the votes together to do it. And there's probably a big population that's happy about it.
Mm-hmm. Tristan's mommy says, it's imperative that we know and understand all aspects of our history so it won't be his story.
But it's already his story, because we're only learning the aspect of the fact that we were inferior in this country from the beginning to the end to the rest of the country. We couldn't get nothing done without the co-signing of the very people who was oppressing us in the first place.
Right. Yeah. But
slavery is not. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. That's not really, what I want to I want my sons to idolize. Malcolm X was I kind of want them to idolize somebody that's successful and still alive. That was probably never ever a slave. He was never inferior.
Mm-hmm. Derek Williams from Philly. Thanks for pulling up, Derek. Appreciate you. Historically speaking, if Willie Lynch didn't exist, that infamous letter was spot on. How the pit won against the other.
Yep. But, some people don't want them to be able to write stuff like that Willie Lynch letter because it's racist.
So then let me ask you this question, Shanati, based on your perspective. A couple years ago in California, there were at least two that I can recall, individuals who were lynched, and they came back and said, "Oh, it was suicide."
Mm-hmm.
So how do you address that? How do you even put that together in your mind and just?
I hope to God it doesn't happen to nobody that I know. Prayers go out to the families of those people.
Mm-hmm.
But what exactly is it that Black people did in response to that? We went on a march.
I don't even know if that happened.
If you could kill Black people and get away with it, what the fuck you think I'm gonna do about it?
All
Fuck
right.
am I gonna do about it?
Well, there's not going to be a whole lot you can do about
If,
it, but
if your kid get murdered and what you feel like doing is going outside and having a press conference, then who am I to tell you? You know, I'm following your lead. What you mean?
right.
I don't hear nobody going up and shooting up places and getting no type of revenge or nothing. Everybody's handling it how they want to handle it. So, what am I going to keep on getting upset for just to do what? I don't need walking buddies because that's all Black people seem to do when something
Oh, yeah.
horrible happens to one of us.
Yeah, no. Yeah, the marching stuff is out. The marching stuff is out. So, Shanada, this is why I always enjoy speaking with you because I don't care what the topic is, we're always on the opposite side. But we're always on the opposite side. But to me, you always make sense. Now, I don't know if to you I make sense.
You do.
Yeah, okay. But we're always on the opposite side. And like I said, you make valid points. If I were to categorize our views on this, I would say that
My thing is, Mel, how we gonna feel worse than they family? And then you say, okay, well, damn, what did the mom, brother, and sister do about it? You said you don't even know if they had a march. So what are me and you gonna do? What we gonna do? Organize a march?
well, no,
What that's gonna do for that boy or for any other boy? What is gonna stop? Ain't nothing gonna stop the fear.
I just feel like what needs to happen is we need something needs to change. And you're right. I know when I was speaking to Antoinette a couple weeks ago, she said she's really hit me up to some game that I was totally unaware of, where she said that, if I think it's the National Black Caucus, if they would get off of their behind and really do the job that they were elected to do, a lot of these nickel and dime bills would not pass. Because
So again, who are we blaming?
well, it's not, I mean, at this point, it's not even blame. I'm just, this is the problem. And I feel like, I'm just stating the problem. And if we were in a board meeting and they said, Mel, how do you feel? What are your recommendations to resolve this issue? I would say, I
I'm gonna
wouldn't
say
say,
everybody got to go from the top down. I'm gonna say there is no I'm gonna say as far as Black people is concerned, there should be no Republicans or Democrats. There should be the Black Party again, all over again.
well, what
And
do you
I
do?
think that we should maybe, I don't know, tighten up, get in formation, whatever you want to call it, so we could represent ourselves for the better interest of ourselves. I think that separate might be equal. I think a lot of different things depending on the situation. And I think you should be able to opt in or out based on your choosing. Right now, we don't have no choice. We just opted in by literally birth. At this point, if you're born here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Just a T, please said both of you make sense. You bounce off each other. I know I love having Shanadi as a guest. I love talking to Shanadi, no matter whether it's on Station Head or wherever. Derek C. Williams said, being ex-military, it would be surgical for them and suicide for us, but righteous indignation and anger are warranted.
Here's the thing. I'm not advocating no form of violence or retaliation.
Right.
But as far as your statement right there, but that's another point.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because there's gun ranges, there's all type of things, and we should own some with all of the. Rick Ross should have his own with all of that land he got down there. Tyler Perry should have some too, so we can learn how to do them instead of just looking stupid in music videos and everywhere else. Why shouldn't we learn how to shoot responsibly? Why isn't that a goal for a thug, a rapper, or anybody else who call themselves a real ass N-word and OG and all of that type of stuff? So it's sad that we accept our mediocrity as regular, because that's all that is. Right. It should not be surgical for them. We the one who been oppressed. We the one who got a chip on our shoulder. They should not be able. We better at everything than them. But that, come on now.
Okay, good point.
That's not. Come on.
So that and you're right, and I agree with you, and that's what I'm saying. I feel like we need to step our game up. We need to level up. And just to be honest, I see your point of view, but to me, it seems more, I want to use the word inaction, but I don't know if that's really appropriate, because I know that's not specifically what you mean, because I understand you to mean that, we have to just take this responsibility on our own self and within our own homes and teach our own kids, etc. And maybe not try to have this, global or community influence. That's how I pretty much.
We're gonna have the influence. Let's have the control over it, because that's what we don't have.
Mm-hmm. And so I feel like in order to have that control, like these bills should not be in 37 states. And DeSantis should be, feeling like, hey, I probably don't really want to get behind a bill like this because this could ruin my career. But for him to feel so comfortable with the fact that, yeah,
Well, he got elected, and the people who elected him wanted him to do this. Just like when you elect somebody, you want them to do certain things for you. So again, I say to us, where we have high concentrations of any type of minority, what is going on?
Well, Donnie, I don't know if you can see the image I have on the screen right
Chatham
now.
County student held slave auction at school, mother says.
Yeah, and
And where does it say that she got suspended for fighting? Or
I
he
don't,
got suspended for fighting?
I don't
Where
know.
does it say that we're teaching our parents, our children, these parents are teaching their children to respond to this type of treatment any other type of way? That child just took that. That's what you're telling me? That's not what that's what you're learning in school. You're learning that you do come from slavery. So, hey, what I'm a fighting for, my ancestors didn't, it took them how many years to fight it? Like,
Well,
that's crazy.
mhm.
And then you got kids from some areas where that would have never happened.
Mhm.
Like, like, come on now.
Y'all see how Shanati be cutting me off, boy? I'm telling you. Ooh, go ahead, Shanati. Well, the reason why I put this picture up here, Shanati, is because I don't know if you guys can see it, but clear enough. But the expression on this young lady's face is painful to me. It's painful to me because she's frustrated and her ability. It looks like, okay, how do I respond to this? Because the first thing I would want to do is I'm not going to say cuss somebody out, but what I'm not going to want to do is just sit there and take it. I'm not going to want to sit there and take it, especially if this comfort bill is in place. That's, and so we're not giving our youth the opportunity to build that level of self-esteem if we remain or continue to remain inactive. We're not showing them how to fight back. That means you have somebody. I don't know if you can recall back to your first job, but on my first job, I was intimidated. I was scared. My confidence wasn't, hidden because it was my first job. You know what I mean? But as I've grown, okay, I'm a little different on my subsequent jobs. You understand what I mean? And so we're not fortifying our children in we're not fortifying them to be able to be strong when they wind up being confronted with racist type of environments. We're not teaching them how they need to respond appropriately. And we're not teaching
Yes, we
them
are though. We're
how, okay,
teaching
how so?
them
How so?
that when you deal with a racist, you become a slave, because that's what racism is. That's what we teach them about. We
You're
teach
saying
them
when,
about slavery. So when you do that, you teach a racist to be a racist, and you teach an ancestor or a descendant of slave to be a slave.
wait, I'm sorry. Say that again, girl. That was a lot. Say it again. Repeat that, Naughty.
I said that when you teach kids about racism and racist, you teach a racist to be a racist, and you teach a descendant of slaves to be a slave. So that they successfully held the auction of a black kid in 2022, because that black kid knows that auctions were successfully held. That black kid has not been taught nowhere near as much about how we got free, that's true to them. They teachers is probably white, the cafeteria is probably white, the nurses is probably white, the police officers is probably white. The only person black in a position of power around them is probably their mom. And based on what we teach them, when we teach them slavery, our moms couldn't even keep us. We was taken from our moms. We don't know who we related to. So you put your mom up against a racist, and your mom likely become a slave. Because that's what happened before. That's what we teaching them. That's where we come from. We don't come from Africa. We don't come from kings and queens. Right. That's not what we talking about when we say Black history. When we talk about Black history, we talk about Americanized slavery.
Right.
And what were Black people then? They were the slaves.
Tristan's mommy said, huh? And Tristan's mommy also said, I respectfully disagree. And
yeah, because nobody wants to hear it. What is positive about being? How is your son or daughter learning that they come from people who were not even considered human. How is that making them feel better when they come up against an actual racist?
Well, is to
So
me
now
that
it's like, oh, so there's people who still believe this.
well,
And maybe that kid has better grades than me.
mhm.
So maybe I am inferior.
Well,
Maybe it is because of my skin color.
mhm.
That's why black people always say it's because I'm black. Everything is because I'm black.
Well, sometimes it is. Sometimes it is, but I'll say this. That's why
Exactly,
instead of
Derek C.
putting a
Williams.
instead of minimizing the training, it needs to be. I mean, there needs to be some meat behind this amendment that I read earlier, where it says um, school staff should teach topics around race efficiently, faithfully, using materials that meet the highest standards of professionalism and historical accuracy. So I don't say let's dial it back and bury it. I don't, and that's essentially what these laws are doing. It's just dialing it back. Let's not talk about it. And and I disagree with that uh, position. I feel like we need to step it up. We need to get in there, and we need to make them know we're here. We've been here, and because we've been here, that's why y'all here so good. Now, the big question is, um, how is it that we were even victims of slavery? How did that happen? For 400 plus years. How is that? I don't know. I don't know. But I can just say for today and moving forward, you know, there should not be any laws that limit us on uh, or limit the teaching, the full-bodied teaching of history, especially Black history. And if you're going to make me sit down, or my kids sit down, or grandkids sit down, and have to endure learning about, uh, what Asians did and what Jews did and what white people did and any other ethnicity did. And I have to learn that. And those are going to be test questions. And I need to pass the test and all that. You're not going to make me have to eat all that up. But yet, we can't talk about me, my race. You're not, no. And you mean to tell me I got to go on a job and you can be as discriminatory as you want to be and I can't say nothing? And it's not about, to me, it's not about, well, if you don't like it, then just don't work there. That's not the point. The point is that everyone else who has to pay taxes and live in this country gets to be fully embraced. But when it comes to us, they always find a way to say, well, see, y'all really don't need, see, we might as well still be 3/5 of a human being, the way they keep trying to 3/5 us with a law. Every time you turn around, they got a law coming out that limits Black people.
Every time you turn around, one of them is getting elected by somebody.
Well, I mean, you did hit it on you hit the nail on the head on the phone, and you hit the nail on the head. Shout, I got his TV. You hit the nail on the head up in here when you said, the voting has to be, we got to get serious about the voting. And you're right. There is no reason. What happened with Stacey Abrams in Atlanta? That should have never happened. That should have never happened. So, to me, this is just a clear indication and a clear display of how ineffective as a race we are being, how we are asleep at the wheel, and we're not taking our rights as citizens in this country. We're not taking them seriously. So yeah, do I want to know if the person next to me is racist? Hell yeah, I want to know. But to know and be limited so he can run around with a noose and chase me around the office with it, and he's free to do that, and then I can't even go tell HR about it. That's the wrong answer, in my opinion. So I don't know.
You run up on me in the office if you want with a noose, and
Oh,
I'm
girl,
not.
what you done said?
HR is not.
Come on.
HR is not going to call who
Hey,
I'm going to be calling. I can tell you that right
listen,
now. But
HR
I will
who?
say,
HR who?
what I will
You know,
say is that there's nothing wrong with teaching critical race therapy, and I really don't think there's anything wrong with not teaching it, because at the end of the day, I feel like as Black people, we should be teaching our own kids. Just like
Certainly.
other cultures pass down their information to each
Certainly.
other from their culture, and then they still learn American and culture and English and things like
Mhm.
that while holding on to theirs. We need to do the same thing.
Right.
And I think that it's a joke to put that responsibility on anybody outside of our culture. So it shouldn't matter if, in my opinion, it shouldn't matter if they cancel it in schools, because again, like I said, we should be doing it at home.
We should. We should, but by the same token, we need to stand up for our rights. Derek C. Williams says ESPN's Ryan Clark was on TV crying because his 20 something college son had a racial incident. Shame that he never thought to empower his child on how to respond to that madness. Instead, woe is me.
He did teach him. He taught him how a slave will react.
Well,
He
or
didn't
even-
teach him how nobody who in 2022 will be like, oh, that could never happen to me. My child could never be held at auction. There's a lot of those parents out there, but yet here we is in 2022, and a black baby was sold for $350. And I want to see what's going to happen about it. We're going to get a 5-minute segment on the news.
Yeah, nothing's going to happen
y'all
about
want me to y'all want me to do something about it for somebody? No. Let them change whatever laws they want to. Y'all loving it.
Yeah. Derek says history, Africa's gift to America, 100 amazing facts about the Negro with complete proof. Yeah. I mean, if we got to sit back and learn about Anne Frank, which I did read that Diary of Anne Frank a long time ago, and that was a really good book. And it opened my eyes to a perspective that I had no idea of. And I think that was required reading at the time. And so if I'm required to read about Anne Frank and learn about her culture, then how come you can't read history, Africa's gift to America? Why can't we make that required reading? I'm just saying we need to stand up and not sit down. That's what I'm saying. We need to stand up. Y'all going to stop minimizing us and creating these laws, and we're sitting back allowing the laws to pass. So, and we're not even putting up a fight. So that's very problematic. And I see your point. I do agree with the fact that, yes, we need to be on it in the crib. We need to be teaching our children. We need to be the ones to empower them. But then by the same token, we need to teach everyone that whose history we have to learn about. Y'all need to learn about ours too, period. And not just because, well, this isn't fair. You need to know.
We can't be requiring other people to know our history and we don't even know our history. How that's going to work?
Well, I mean, hey, I feel you, but you're making me learn about somebody else's history.
Yeah, so but most of them cultures that you mentioned, they know their history. That's why they could teach it so well.
Yeah.
We don't even know our history like that.
Okay, but they're teaching it in the school. And I'm going to say this to you. They're teaching it in the school. So if they're doing a bad job of teaching the histories of Jewish people and Asian people, then they can, continue to do a bad job teaching about African Americans. But what you're not going to do is say, well, you can't teach about this at all, but we're going to continue to make you guys learn more and more and more and more about all these other ethnicities. No, we're going to it needs to be equal. And these laws need to be repealed. And I feel like we need to put some pressure on whomever to get these laws rolled back. And then we also need to put pressure and make sure that that history of Black people is a full body teaching, so that it's not just, all you were was a slave. To your point, Shanati.
Mm-hmm.
So I thank you for pulling up and having this conversation with me, Shanati.
No, of course. Thanks for having me.
I certainly do. So you guys, that's it. That's the podcast. Be sure to like, share, subscribe if you haven't already. Replay Gang, leave a comment. I want to hear from you. And until next time, y'all, we will see ya when we see ya. Welcome to the Only Male Cruise Show, the podcast. I am the only Male Cruise. Be sure to hit the like button, share, subscribe, replay gang, leave a comment. I want to hear from you. Copyright disclaimer regarding fair use is in full effect. The views and opinions expressed in this show, you guessed it, they're all mine. Let's go to work.